And it just had me feeling real good. The feeling was I didn't have to do nothing. I didn't have to pay no bills. I didn't have to be responsible. I didn't have to put gas in a truck, pay a mortgage, pay a light bill. I didn't have to do none of that. I just was free. It was something like it was my caretaker. It was my landlord. It was my bill collector.
Welcome everyone on behalf of Chapman Partnership. My name is Dan Gretsch, and I'll be hosting today's program. For the past 25 years, Chapman has worked to help its homeless residents become self-sufficient to build a positive future. It's their mission to end homelessness in South Florida, and that mission has never been more critical than now. Tonight's program is an examination on the meaning of home through the eyes of South Florida storytellers. We collected these stories through a public call for submissions. We asked people to tell us what home meant to them in the time of a pandemic. We received dozens of submissions, both sad and sweet, tragic and touching. We learned that home is so much more than a physical place. Here's what home means to some of our community contributors. A quick word of warning. The stories in today's program tackle adult themes that may not be appropriate for young children. This home story is from Ben Johnson. Ben is a former Chapman resident turned Chapman employee. He knows firsthand what it's like to battle demons and how to rise above them. Ben grew up in the Overtown section of Miami. He's a veteran of the U.S. Marines. He spent 5 years on the street. For the past 17 years, Ben has considered Chapman, where he works full-time, his home away from home. Ben handles safety and security and grounds beautification for the North Campus. But he's so much more than a security guard or groundskeeper. Ask anyone who walks through its doors. Ben is the heart and soul of Chapman. Here's Home is Community by Ben Johnson.
I've been at Chapman for 17 years. My position is safety and security and beautification for the grounds. I was born in Miami, Florida, in Overtown. I was adopted. I already had came from dysfunctional, but as time went on, I joined the Marines, and I became a Marine, and that's where it took off at. My first mistake was I did not stay in the Marines. I didn't retire, and I met a thing called crack cocaine. I can't recall how old I was because of all the drugs that I have done. Crack was the final straw that led me to a house of pain. It took me to a divorce. It took me to poverty. It took me to mental illness. I couldn't survive once I started with that crack. When I took that first hit, my sister came to my house where me and my wife was living with my 2 little kids. And that's the first time that I ever hit that crack. And when I hit that crack, I left the house and never came back. I started staying out in the streets, didn't have nowhere to go, and I found myself on the streets. And it just had me feeling real good. The feeling was I didn't have to do nothing. I didn't have to pay no bills. I didn't have to be responsible. I didn't have to put gas in a truck, pay a mortgage, pay a light bill. I didn't have to do none of that. I just was free. It was something like it was my caretaker. It was my landlord. It was my bill collector. The crack had me shopping at KFC dumpster. It had me shopping at Burger King dumpster. I didn't have to worry about nothing to eat because them places fed me. Each and every day I go by and check them dumpsters. See did they have any food in them. See if they had anything left over for me. I didn't have nothing to eat. I was hungry. I checked the dumpsters out. And when I got tired, I went under the bridge, got me some cardboard, a blanket, and I was at home. I didn't have to pay a bill. I just had to lay down with the rest of them and go to sleep. I slept under the bridge. I always slept places where I felt safe. Even I slept on the roof because I didn't want to be bothered with nobody. The crack had me with so much power and energy till I wasn't scared of nothing. The crack say, climb the roof. I climbed the roof. The crack say, lay down under the bridge. I laid down under the bridge. I listened to it for a long time. I met a man named Dan H. Vinson. So I went to church, and he's sitting in there and leaned over to me and said, where I go, you go. And that's when my life turned around. He became the CEO for Chapman, and I became the safety and security and groundkeeper at Chapman. He seen something in me that I didn't see in myself. If you keep climbing and don't give up, there's somebody out there waiting on you. They might pass by, they might drive by, they might stop by. But while I was at Chapman, I didn't see them go and come. I didn't see the believers, and I didn't see the disbelievers. I was sent there to help other people to believe in themselves. See, because a lot of times you just can't talk to them, you gotta show up with them. If they know you came from the hole and it can be done, that's the kind of hope that I'm bringing to Chapman. And I've been a motivator for a long time. Remember, I'm a Marine, so that's my job, to motivate people and be a great leader. Sometimes you have to take them by the hand and let them know that you love them. Because the only thing that a homeless person wants is love. And that's what I felt when I got to Chapman. The community could do the same thing that Chapman Partnership did for me. I live not under the bridge anymore, not on the sidewalk anymore. I have scratched and crawled and fought. I live in a townhouse. I don't push a buggy no more. I push a Tacoma. I don't eat out the garbage can no more. I call for food to be delivered. It was one day I went to Flanagan's and my wife said to me, Poppy, where you going? I said, I'm going around by the dumpster and I want to stand up there for a while just to get in touch where I used to be. Home is a place, first, where you got love, happiness, joy, a roof over your head, a hot meal, a good shower, some shower gel, some toothpaste, some air conditioning, some closed-in surrounding, a TV. That's what home is now. It's not the streets anymore. It's not the blankets. It's not the arguments. It's not the fight. It's the security that I have in my home now for me to call it home.
The COVID-19 pandemic has taken a terrible toll on the homeless community. Studies have shown that homeless individuals are twice as likely to be hospitalized and up to 3 times more likely to die than the general population. And rising unemployment and evictions are predicted to increase the homeless population by up to 45%. This disease is confining many of us to our homes, but in this confinement can come moments of coming together. Jamie Webner shares this story of a wedding upended. Here's Home is Joy by Jamie Webner.
Ben and I had been planning our wedding for months. The date was set, April 4th, 2020. My wedding dress was bought, invitations were mailed. Then, a few weeks before our big day, COVID-19 came to America, and and we made the tough decision to cancel. After the cancellation, we sat in quarantine, missing our family and friends, sad that our wedding was in limbo. We watched country after country go into lockdown and felt what we imagined the whole world was feeling, mounting fear. The week before our wedding day, we decided to take back the date. We needed a little joy. So we planned a different kind of wedding. Instead of a fancy venue in Coconut Grove, we'd get married on our 8x4-foot balcony at home. Thanks to an internet ordination, my sister got upgraded from maid of honor to officiant. And because it wasn't safe to have anyone else there, our friends and families would watch our wedding via Zoom. I wore my wedding dress and did my own hair and makeup, set up a camera, and my sister stood 6 feet back and conducted the ceremony. To our surprise, our wedding was not only witnessed by our invited guests via Zoom, but also by our neighbors in our building and in the building across the street who were quarantined in their own homes. When my sister pronounced us husband and wife and we kissed, our neighbors cheered. When we popped our champagne, neighbors we'd never met popped their own bottles of champagne. Corks were flying off balconies. In the grips of the pandemic, our home became our only safe place. Our office, our gym, and for one Saturday in April, our wedding venue. But something else special happened that day. Our neighbors, who we'd never met, became our community. For that afternoon, they were distracted with us from all that was happening outside of our homes. In the months that have followed, many of them have seen us on our sidewalk or in the dog park, and even through our masks, have recognized us as the couple that got married on their balcony. Strangers have congratulated us and told us we brought them joy during such a sad time. During the ceremony, my sister read a prayer by St. Francis of Assisi that felt fitting with the times and that I've carried in my heart since. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. And where there is sadness, joy. I got pregnant 2 weeks later, and now we are expecting our greatest joy.
Our next storyteller is Kendall Peterson. He faced stints of homelessness growing up. His story is about how that trauma impacted his life and how he's worked to overcome it. Here's Home is Removing My Cape by Kendall Peterson.
I'm sure from the outside, we looked like most middle-class white families in the 70s. That little greenhouse in Hampton, Illinois, had a father, a mother, 2 kids, and Superman playing on a small black and white television. My father was a Marine in Korea and Vietnam. My mom was a child of the Great Depression and World War II. They were simultaneously strong and weak and drowned their problems in alcohol. I was probably 6 the first time I remember my mom standing in the kitchen yelling, "My life would be so much better without you goddamn kids." When I was 12, after years of fighting, police cars, and ambulances, my parents divorced. My mom wanted to take us as far away from my father as she could, so she moved us to Miami. My dad stayed in Illinois and drank himself into a coma. He died 2 years later. Not too long after we moved, my 17-year-old sister left, and I became the sole focus of my mom's anger. She drank more, stopped buying groceries, stopped paying the bills, stopped coming home. There was no food in the refrigerator, no lights, no water. So I would hang out at my friends' houses in the hopes that their parents would invite me to stay for dinner. Around the corner from my house was a restaurant called Jack's Diner. I rode my bike there every day, and I asked Jack for a job until I wore him down and he hired me to wash dishes. I don't think Jack knew my situation, but he always had a meal for me when I got there after school, which was usually the first meal I'd eat that day. Before I clocked out, he would hand me a turkey and provolone sandwich. When my mom did come home, I tried to avoid her. One night I was in the kitchen, eating the sandwich that Jack had made for me, and studying for a biology test. I heard my mom pull up, and I got scared. She walked in, looked at my sandwich crumbs, my school books, and a kitchen knife. She hesitated, and then she charged at me. When it was over, she stared at me cold. She said, "Get the hell out of my house right now." It was 11:30 at night. For the next couple of months, I had to figure out where to sleep. Sometimes I slept in the backseat of Mr. Jones' Chevy Impala, but I was always afraid he would catch me. Sometimes I slept in my friend's backyard hammock. One time, I broke into a neighbor's house who was on vacation. One rainy night, I was working at the diner. When I took the trash out, I flung open the lid to the dumpster, and it fell against the storage shed behind it. It provided the perfect shelter from the rain. After work, I made a bed with cardboard boxes. I slept there Christmas to Easter of 10th grade. It felt like an eternity. I never got used to the rats. Near the restaurant, there was a strip mall with a bank of 3 payphones. Every time I walked past, I would stick my finger in the coin return slots to see if there was change. There was a night where I felt so beaten down. I made a deal with myself. If there was a coin in one of those slots, I would keep going. If there was no coin, I would end it all. Stuck my finger in the first coin slot, nothing. In the second, nothing. In the third coin slot, still nothing. I took a step back, stared at the phones, and my eye caught this little sticker. It read, "Need help?" with a phone number. I had never seen it there before. The voice on the other end was calm and reassuring. He said he would have a police officer come and pick me up. I felt relief, but as soon as I hung up, I panicked and ran. But that calm voice broke my immediate thought pattern. The next day, I called my sister and I went to stay with her. Daily life felt more stable, but I still felt unworthy. My childhood wounds had made a home in my head. As a defense, I did whatever I could to be liked. I did people's homework, I took my girlfriends on trips, I took on extra assignments and worked late. People at work and even some of my friends called me Superman. I've spent most of my life playing this character. I learned to fly airplanes, became a firefighter, operated a nuclear power plant. I wanted to be seen as perfect. Of course, I'm not perfect. So as soon as I thought someone was getting too close, I would run. Trying to be perfect left me lonely. As it turns out, the solution to my particular vulnerability was to allow myself to be vulnerable. I credit that change to my wife, Arlene. We met under the usual circumstances, at a happy hour. I liked her, she liked me, we dated. A year later, I proposed, she accepted, and we started a life together. I worked hard to be her Superman. I gave her everything I thought she wanted. We traveled, lived in nice homes, drove new cars. Looking back, it's clear what I didn't give her was the real me, the flawed man underneath the cape. Our relationship went the same as all my others. When she saw through the facade, I ran. I got an apartment. I even cheated on her. But Arlene didn't give up. She fought for us. She fought for me. She dragged me to sessions with multiple therapists. When they pointed out what I was doing, I would erupt and walk out. By the grace of God, Arlene persevered. Arlene found a therapist who was able to walk that fine line between holding me accountable without me feeling judged. Arlene and I dug into our childhood wounds, the wounds that drove our relationship where we didn't want it to go. We peeled away layer after layer until there was this moment of raw vulnerability when I uncovered that scared, desperate little boy who once hid in the basement watching Superman. I saw that he was still trying to protect me, and I had to let him know that I didn't need his protection anymore, that I could handle it now, that I'd found a safe and loving home with my wife and children. I cried uncontrollably for him, but it was liberating to let him off the hook. That was 8 years ago. My family knows I'm flawed. They know that sometimes I fail. Now, it's okay not to be Superman. It's okay to just be man.
Next up is Chapman Partnership's CEO, Samiria Hudson. Samiria grew up in rural Alabama. She got a Bachelor's of Science from Alabama A&M University School of Business and an MBA from Harvard Business School. For more than 20 years, Samiria was an executive for top medical technology and healthcare companies in the US and Europe. But she never forgot her roots in Alabama or the people from her childhood who were homeless. Here's Home is Uncle Billy by Samiria Hudson.
Home is family. Spending time with my husband and my 22-month-old son. Growing up in the projects of Huntsville, Alabama, was the driving force for me to succeed. See, where I was from, most people saw the projects as a destination and not a temporary landing spot. Now today, I'm going to tell you and share with you a story about how me and my family loved someone who was homeless. Someone who was very, very close to me, my Uncle Billy. He had a challenging situation. He was homeless on the streets of California. That is why I am so passionate about the home that we have created for our residents at Chapman Partnership. When I was 12 years old on a Saturday evening. See, Saturday nights were very special to me and my family. Me and my sisters would gather around the TV to watch some of our programming like Good Times and Bionic Man. We were so excited. But what was really special about a Saturday evening is that we would always hear from Uncle Billy. The phone rings. We gather around the phone, waiting to hear about the exciting adventures of Uncle Billy. We would pass the phone around from each one of us just to hear his voice. He would tell us about all the incredible people that he would meet. When the call ended, my mother hung up the phone. I saw her weeping in a corner, and I asked her, I said, "Mom, what is wrong? We just heard from Uncle Billy." She said a few days earlier, she found out that Uncle Billy was homeless. I didn't know what that word meant. As she began to explain what that meant to Uncle Billy and to us, I was amazed. I said, "Mommy, he has a home here with us. We're his family. What happened?" See, Uncle Billy suffered from mental illness. For over 25 years, he lived on the streets of Pasadena, California. It took the death of my mother for Uncle Billy to come off the streets. My sister and I, we took him into our home, we cared for him, but unfortunately, a few short years later, he died prematurely because of his issues in living on the streets. My family and I struggled to understand how Uncle Billy ended up being homeless. Now as an adult, I reflect on those memories, all those exciting stories that Uncle Billy would tell us on a Saturday night. To be honest, these were encounters that Uncle Billy had on the streets. People that may have walked by him, people that may have dropped a few pennies in his cup. He really didn't have all those adventures that we thought he had. I want to break the stereotypes of homelessness. Today, our current situation may change the face of homelessness. That face may look more familiar than you think. Chapman recently celebrated a quarter of a century in our community. Today, more than ever, Chapman is needed. The home we are creating for our residents, the resources that we are providing, is built on a spirit of hope. Home is more important now than ever. We want to open the doors to our home today to show you what home is for our residents. If my Uncle Billy had received the resources that we offer here at Chapman Partnership, I don't think that he would have died so prematurely. Together, we can be the catalyst in ending homelessness in our community and in our city, and rewrite their stories of home.
The home stories we've heard this hour touch on mental illness, violence, isolation, displacement, and drugs, as well as love, community, and sanctuary. Homelessness at its emotional core means feeling a profound insecurity. And at its very essence, home means feeling safe. To learn more about how Chapman Partnership is working to eradicate homelessness in our community, visit chapmanpartnership.org. For Chapman Partnership, I'm Dan Gretsch.